I am gaming. I am gaming. I am gaming podcast.
Hey everybody, my name is Ivica. Thank you so much for being on the latest episode of I'm Gaming Podcast. This is a podcast about the video game industry, entrepreneurship, gaming nostalgia, and many more cool things I find to be in the same realm of business and creative ventures. First of all, welcome to 2023. The new year is here and you're on my podcast. So a big thanks for you and for the fact that you're here, and a lot of luck, a lot of great wishes for the coming year. This is episode 160, which is pretty interesting because I want to talk about the coming year and how I perceive it. But before I get into that, a big thanks to all of my Patreon supporters who continue to make this podcast possible. Without your donations, it would be much harder for me to keep making these episodes once per week, every week, and your pledges on Patreon make that come true. Those ideas that I have in mind, they become reality thanks to your support. So again, a big thanks to all of you. If anyone else wants to support me on Patreon as well, please check out my page. The link is in the description below. Now, as I said, at January 1st, 2023, the new year is here. 2022 was really challenging. First of all, we entered it with another wave of the pandemic, which quickly gave way to the war in Ukraine, the Russian invasion of Ukraine, that spiraled into a huge geopolitical mess, a calamity of incredible proportions, a huge tragedy, an incredibly bloody war fought in Europe, the bloodiest war since World War II, one of the biggest wars, if not the biggest war of the 21st century. All of that is horrible. It gave way to additional horrible things like the shattering economy, rising inflations, and perfect segue to all of that was the ongoing problems with energy supply and energy expenditures, which then became the energy crisis. And finally, the biggest issue of them all, at least in my view, the biggest in terms of the near future and distant future, is the global climate change. The fact that we're having more and more really unstable weathers, patterns and problems that are impacting everyone across the globe, but especially the poorest countries. 2023 is going to be a year of hopes, but also plenty of fears. Sadly, I believe that those fears will manifest themselves pretty quickly into, first and foremost, a global recession that is basically already here, but we're going to see the actual proof of it come into life in the first and second quarter of 2023. So the economies of the world, we're going to struggle immensely. The war is continuing. Presently, there is no indication that either side is willing to negotiate and find kind of a solution to the whole process of the end of the invasion of Russia in Ukraine. The global community is also divided. Besides Russia and Ukraine, there are plenty of hotspots that could become open flames in 2023. Iran is the first one, but also Europe is skewing drastically towards the right, the far right options. There are elections coming up in a range of countries. They could easily follow the path of Italy and get their really hardline right leaders and parties, if not the actual far right parties, into office and into governments. No one knows what that can end up into, but history shows us that a lot of nationalism, a lot of far right in Europe is not actually the best way forward, historically speaking. So there is going to be that for sure, and there is going to be a lot of other issues as well. Energy still very expensive, a big part of the recession. Those are also the places where hope will come up in 2023, because good news is that in the previous months, most of 2022, investment and expansion of renewable energy sources is on the rise, which is not only good for the economy, it's good for that biggest issue of climate change, which we need to get into a big match with that problem, because right now we're still preparing, we're still training, we're still hitting the punching bag in the gym. We need to be in that ring as soon as possible and pulling all of our weight, because the opponent, global climate change, is threatening not just our ecosystem, it's threatening our basic global collective civilization as we know it presently. Solutions and problems have to somehow coalesce and create that interchangeable system where we solve one thing, that solves another thing, that solves a third thing, which goes back to the first thing. All of it is basically tied up into geopolitics. The geopolitics are then tied up into the economy and finances, which are then tied into basic social constructs of each country, society, and bloc. Right now, there's a lot of division, a lot of polarization, but there are also options how these different, let's say, factions can find a way to work together to avoid a common threat, which will be the global climate change problem and process. And I'm pretty sure that 2023 will see additional big issues like the flooding in Pakistan, which flooded in 2023 literally 1/3 of the country, which will end up into additional migratory waves that will put pressure on the Western world, but also other different regions where people simply have to go if they want to survive and their families have to survive. That pattern is going to continue in 2023. There is the question with the records for the highest temperatures be broken. For me, that plays little difference. We could have a bit of luck and see those records remain the same in 2023, but that doesn't mean that climate change is changing its pattern. The COP26 last year didn't manage to do much apart from kind of giving that monetary help to the most needed countries that need it the most, but that's for me a really tiny step. We need to be doing a lot more proactively across the globe, and we're not doing it. In 2023, my high hopes are that we'll start to do it, and through that we can kind of get a road into that process of leaving recession, a way to kind of get different, let's say, countries or blocks around the table that can again cooperate without kind of that narrative of wanting to annihilate each other, which we see presently is not working, and it's really hard to annihilate a kind of a civilization or not just a country but a set of countries. And there are a lot of different factions right now, which again goes back to the issue of the economy and the need for growth, the need for prosperity, which is going to struggle in 2023, not just on the level of countries, but also naturally on a personal and family level. We're all going to see the impact. So yeah, not plenty to be optimistic for in 2023, but still high hopes remains, like the song from Pink Floyd, high hopes, we have to have them, and we need to understand the fears, recognize them and respect them, quote unquote, but still focus on those hopes. So there's me hoping that 2023 will be well and good. There's me hoping that you'll find a lot of success and luck. And there's me wanting to tell you that I'm really grateful for all of you. I'm pretty close to 2,000 subscribers. I'm hoping that I'm going to hit that number in the coming weeks. Thank you so much for everyone who's listening, who's watching. All the best in 2023, really, to not just you, but to all of us. And let's hope that this year sets a foundation for a really good 2024. That's all for me. Thank you so much for being here. Again, a big thanks to all of my Patreon supporters. Check out their ventures and their really cool projects in the description below. Those include everything from YouTube channels, Twitch streams, and so much more. All of which is amazing. There is a lot of even NFT projects, games, what have you. Please check all of this out. Please consider supporting me on Patreon if you can, and doing it regularly. I know it's a lot of money giving somebody $1 each month, every month, but if you can do that, I would be super grateful. Again, that's all for me. Big thanks to you. Have a great 2023, and I'll talk to you in precisely 7 days from now. Until then, bye bye.